Have you ever looked at someone successful and wondered where it all began? Did they have wealthy parents, a lucky break, or did they simply see something that everyone else ignored? Because every city has that one person, the teenager pushing a cart filled with old furniture, the young man loading broken appliances into the back of a rusty truck, the person everyone assumes has failed. But sometimes you're not looking at someone who's struggling. You're looking at someone who's just getting started. This is the story of a boy who had absolutely nothing. No savings, no connections, no business degree, not even a job. And somehow, he built an empire. But to understand how it happened, we have to go back to the day his bank account reached zero. Every morning started the same way. His alarm rang at 7. He got dressed, printed another resume, walked across town, and heard the same sentence over and over again. Will let you know, they never did. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. His wallet grew lighter. His hope did too. One evening, after another rejection, he stopped at a small convenience store. He reached into his pocket. 1 coin. Not enough. He quietly put the bottle of water back on the shelf and walked out. That night, he checked his bank account. $0. He stared at the screen for a long time. Not because he was shocked, because he already knew what it was going to say. For the first time in his life, he wasn't thinking about becoming successful. He was thinking about tomorrow. How was he going to eat? How would he pay rent? How much longer before he had to give up? The next morning, he did something different. Instead of searching for jobs, he decided to walk. No destination, no plan, just thinking. That's when he noticed something strange. A perfectly good wooden chair sitting on the sidewalk. It wasn't broken. Someone had simply left it outside with a small sign, free. He kept walking, then stopped, turned around, and looked at it again. Someone had spent money to buy that chair. Someone had used it for years, and now it had suddenly become worthless. Or had it? He carried the chair all the way back to his apartment, cleaned it, tightened to loose screws, took a few photos, and listed it online. He wasn't expecting much. Maybe $20, maybe nothing. The next morning, his phone buzzed. Is it still available? An hour later, the chair was gone. $40 sat in his hand. It wasn't life-changing. It wasn't even enough to pay his rent. But it was something much more important. Proof that value doesn't disappear. People just stop noticing it. Most people would have celebrated. He asked a different question. If one chair could make $40, how many other things are people throwing away? The next few days became an experiment. Every evening, he walked through different neighborhoods, not looking for treasure, looking for things people no longer wanted. A lamp, a bookshelf, a bicycle with a flat tire, a coffee table missing one handle. Most needed nothing more than a quick cleaning. Some sold the same day, others took longer. Little by little, $40 became $80, then $100, then $300. For the first time in months, he wasn't surviving. He was moving forward. But then something happened that almost ended the whole idea. One afternoon, he arrived at his usual neighborhood. Everything was gone, not sold, gone. Another man was already loading furniture into a van. Within weeks, people had noticed. Competition had arrived. The easy money disappeared almost overnight. For a moment, he thought that was it. The opportunity was gone. Maybe everyone had been right. Maybe it had only been luck. He went home frustrated, and for the first time in weeks, he considered looking for another job. But the next morning, something unexpected happened. He watched an elderly couple struggling to move a heavy sofa from their house to the curb. It took them nearly 15 minutes. They looked exhausted. When they finally finished, the husband sighed and said, "I'm just glad someone will take it." That sentence stayed with him, not because of the sofa, because of something much bigger. They weren't happy to give it away. They were relieved to get rid of it. The furniture had never been the real opportunity. The problem was, people didn't want old furniture. People wanted it gone. That realization changed everything. Instead of waiting for free furniture to appear, he knocked on a door. "Hi," he said. "I noticed you're getting rid of some things. If you'd like, I can haul everything away for you." The man looked surprised. "You do that much?" The boy froze. He hadn't even thought about charging. He quietly answered, "Whatever you think is fair." The man smiled. "Deal." A few hours later, he walked away with $70 and a truckload of furniture. He had just been paid to collect inventory he could sell again. For the first time, he wasn't making money once. He was making it twice. He stopped walking home that evening. He stood on the sidewalk, looking at the back of his overloaded cart. Cars drove past. People barely noticed him. Some probably thought, "Poor kid." But for the first time in months, he smiled. Because while everyone else saw junk, he was beginning to see something much bigger. He wasn't collecting furniture anymore. He was discovering a business hidden inside a problem that almost everyone ignored. And he had no idea that this small decision was about to change the rest of his life. The next morning, he woke up before sunrise. Not because he had to, because, for the first time in months, he had somewhere to be. His phone wasn't filled with rejection emails anymore. It was filled with addresses. "Can you remove this old sofa? We're clearing out our garage. My office is replacing all the desks." Every notification meant one thing: someone had a problem, and they were willing to pay someone to solve it. He accepted every job he physically could. Some days, he worked 12 hours. Some days, 16. His hands became rough. His back ached. His clothes were stained with dust, paint, and dirt. But every evening, his bank account looked a little different. Not because someone hired him, because someone trusted him. And he never wanted to lose that trust. One customer became 5. 5 became 20. 20 became 50. Soon, he wasn't spending time looking for customers anymore. Customers were looking for him. One afternoon, his phone rang. A restaurant owner needed old kitchen equipment removed. It was the biggest job he'd ever been offered. He looked at the mountain of heavy equipment, then looked at himself. There was no way he could finish it alone. For a moment, he almost said no, but then he accepted the job before knowing how he'd complete it. Then, he called his closest friend. "I need help." The next morning, the two of them worked until sunset. By the end of the day, they were exhausted, but the customer smiled. "You boys work harder than anyone I've hired." Before leaving, the owner handed him another address. "My brother owns 3 restaurants. He'll probably need you too." That single recommendation became 3 more jobs. 3 became 8. 8 became dozens. He realized something important. People don't just pay for hard work. They pay for reliability. If you show up when you promise, if you do the job properly, people remember. Months passed. The little cart wasn't enough anymore. He bought a second-hand pickup truck, not because he wanted one, because he needed one. That truck changed everything. Now, he could accept larger jobs, entire offices, small warehouses, apartment buildings. Every bigger problem came with a bigger paycheck. But one evening, something happened that changed his business forever. After cleaning out an old warehouse, the truck was full. Broken shelves, cardboard, old computers, scrap metal. His friend looked at the pile and sighed. "Straight to the dump." The boy hesitated. Something didn't feel right. There had to be value hiding somewhere inside all this. The next morning, instead of driving to the landfill, he drove to a recycling center. The employee walked around the truck. "We'll take it." The employee handed him a payment receipt. He stared at it. They were paying him for the very things he had planned to throw away. He drove home without turning on the radio. His mind wouldn't stop racing. Every job he'd completed over the last few months, he had been throwing away money without realizing it. From that day forward, nothing left his truck until he knew exactly what it was worth. Old appliances, copper wire, steel, cardboard, aluminum, electronics, everything had value if you knew where to look. Years passed. The pickup truck became 3 trucks. 3 became 10. 10 became 20. He rented a warehouse, then another, then another. His small team became 50 employees, then 100. Every new employee learned the same lesson on their first day. "We're not in the junk business." They always looked confused. He would smile and continue. "We're in the problem-solving business. The junk is just how people describe the problems they don't want anymore." Soon, businesses began calling. Instead of homeowners, hotels, shopping malls, factories, schools, construction companies. Every contract was bigger than the last. The company expanded into recycling, commercial cleaning, property maintenance, demolition, waste management. The little business people once laughed at had quietly become an empire. No flashy advertisements, no viral marketing, no billionaire investors. Just years of solving problems, one after another. One afternoon, while driving through the city, he passed the same neighborhood where everything had begun. There, on the sidewalk, sat another wooden chair, just like the first one. He stopped the truck, walked over, ran his hand across the old wood for a moment. He wasn't the owner of a successful company. He was 18, again, standing on the sidewalk, wondering whether a discarded chair was worth carrying home. He smiled. Years later, a journalist visited the company's headquarters. The building was enormous. Rows of trucks lined the parking lot. Warehouses stretched across the property. Hundreds of employees moved in every direction. The journalist asked the question everyone wanted answered. People say, "You built an empire from trash." He laughed. "No, I built it from problems." The journalist looked puzzled. He continued, "Trash was just the first problem I noticed." She asked another question. "If you lost everything today, the trucks, the warehouses, the money, would you start over?" Without hesitation, he answered, "Tomorrow morning." She raised an eyebrow. "How?" He looked out the window. People were walking through the city. Cars filled the streets. Businesses opened their doors. Construction crews unloaded equipment. Restaurants prepared for lunch. Life was happening everywhere. Then he quietly said, "As long as people have problems, there will always be another business waiting to be built." Most people believe successful people think differently because they're rich, but maybe they became rich because they learned to see the world differently. When most people see trash, they see trash. When most people hear complaints, they hear noise. When most people walk past an inconvenience, they keep walking. But every successful entrepreneur asks one question: what if this problem is actually an opportunity? That's the question that transformed an empty bank account into an empire. Not overnight, not through luck, not through magic, but one problem, one customer, one decision at a time. Maybe your opportunity isn't furniture. Maybe it isn't recycling. Maybe it isn't cleaning. Maybe it's something completely different. But somewhere around you, someone is frustrated. Someone is wasting time. Someone is paying too much. Someone wishes a problem would simply disappear. The person who solves that problem rarely stays unnoticed for long, because money follows value, and value follows solutions. The next time someone says, "There's no opportunity left," remember the boy who started with nothing, the boy everyone ignored, the boy pushing a cart full of furniture through the streets. People thought he was collecting junk. They had no idea he was collecting the first pieces of an empire.
The world rewards those who solve the problems everyone else ignores.